Today we're making the EveryweAr Crossbody bag from start to finish. We're talking fabric cutting, preparations, and assembly, step by step. So this can be a challenge if you're here to learn and grow as a bag maker. I totally get it. Stepping out of your comfort zone isn't always easy, but that's how you build new skills, and this bag is a great project to do just that. It might seem tricky, but I'll guide you through every step. And if you're a more advanced sewer, this is a fun quick make to add to your collection. So, shall we dive in and sew something amazing together? Before we make it, we need to check out every single detail, okay? I've just packed this bag with lots of stuff just to give it an impression what does fit in there. Even though it's a very small bag, it's just perfect for your everyday adventures. And grab your essentials. You fit your phone, your wallet, some keys, everything you need. Talking about a tricky part of this bag is the front pocket. And this time it's attached to the front panel, and the zipper is sewn onto the front panel just directly on it and covered with some bias tape. So the front A is a whole piece. It's not like the bricks bag, which was separated because a lot of people had some issues with the darts on the side. If you look at the sides, you will connect your strap to some side connectors. So you can attach D-rings with them, or you can use some hardware specially made for that. That's totally up to you. In this instruction, I will show you how to make the strap connectors from fabric. This is a very small bag, it's not very wide, so it might be hard to turn right side out, and I'm gonna show you right here. Turning this bag is not easy, so think about this when you make your bag, about picking your materials. If you think your materials might be too bulky or too hard to turn right side out, consider using the drop-in lining method. We'll dive into that topic as well. So grab a coffee, get comfy, and let's make something awesome together. And we will start with preparations about the printing and the fabrics. So when you've downloaded your files, it's important that you open them in the Adobe Reader, and then you go to your printing settings and check your settings that you're just printing the pages that you need to print. You don't need to print the whole instruction. Make sure you've grabbed the right version and are printing the right version, either US letter or DIN A4, and adjust the size to 100% or actual size. If you have printed out your pattern pieces, some pieces will need assembly. You just connect the letters, and please check the test square if the measurements are correct. So I will show you what materials I've used. For lining, I've used just a regular lightweight quilting cotton. My exterior fabric is a outdoor waterproof canvas and some faux leather. And interfacing is quite important as well. So the interfacings I've used and I can recommend is a G700 for lining and Decofill Light for the exterior pieces. And to add some volume, you can either use the H630 or the Pellon Thermolam. I did not have some Pellon Thermolam, but this is just the same without the glue dots on the back. So I've used some spray glue to make it out of the seam allowance. For hardware, you need some magnet for the flap, some rivets to attach the D-rings, some hardware for your webbing, zipper pulls, and D-rings. You need endless zipper tape as well as some webbing. So the webbing I've chosen is 4 centimeters wide, so your hardware needs to be the same width as your webbing. Of course, you can take a smaller webbing. And we also need some bias tape, but only for the front pocket. So here I've prepared all of my pattern pieces referring to the cut list. And important is, like here on the front pocket, on the slip pocket, I did not use any volume fleece, just the Decofill Light. And on the exterior, front and back, and the flap, and the gusset, I've attached the volume fleece on top of the Decofill Light. So if I turn this, you can see First, I fused on the decofill light, and on top, I fused the pellon for some volume. This is without, and they need to be fused without seam allowance. When it comes to the G700, I fused it with seam allowance, so the whole piece will be fused to the linings. Okay, let's set this aside. You might wonder, why is this T-shaped pattern piece? What is this? If you've never seen this is just to make an interior zipper pocket, and they have different sizes, so make sure you connect the right one to the bottom and one for the top. And we will do the front first. So starting out, these are the pieces that we need for the front pocket. And we set this aside because we will do the magnetic snap first. So therefore you can use the pattern piece and just poke a hole in there and place it on the main fabric piece, maybe on the back of the fabric. Yeah, that's better. Make a marking and attach the female part of the magnetic snap to the slip pocket, the slip front pocket piece main fabric. So what I like to do is I just take the seam ripper to cut these little slits, and to protect my lining fabric I will glue some spare decofill light, some scraps, on top of the back of the magnetic snap. This is just to protect my lining fabrics, not to make the lining rip maybe a little bit, or just keep it secure like that. You could also use some duct tape if you like, but I mean we have some scraps from decofill light, so why not use them? So this is how it looks when it's glued, fused above. And then you take the lining piece, put them wrong sides together, and sew the edge with 1 centimeter seam allowance. Then you fold the fabrics away so that they are wrong sides together, and then top stitch the top edge. The slip pocket is slightly wider than the front pocket, and this is not by false, this is correct. So you take the front pocket piece, main and lining, and baste them together first, and then you will attach the slip pocket on the front pocket. Decide what is up, what is down, so you have a nice look, and then baste it together, making sure the slip pocket, the top edge, is straight. Now we will form a gusset to attach our zipper to our front pocket, of course, and mark the centers. I usually forget, but throughout the pattern you will see a reminder. Mark the centers, and then take a 25 centimeter 10-inch long zipper and place this in between the front zipper gusset pieces. They are right sides together, and sew this short edge with a 1 centimeter seam allowance, and then repeat on the other side. So zipper and main right sides together, lining is underneath, it's like a sandwich, 1 centimeter 3/8-inch seam allowance, and then you formed your gusset. So we will stitch a rectangle around the whole piece, connecting all the raw edges together, wrong sides together, and top stitching the side edges in one step. Then I will mark the centers of my gusset, and now I will attach the bias tape before assembling it to the front pocket. It's a tip, you can do this in a traditional way, but I prefer to do my binding like that. Just it's a nicer finish, and I really like it like that. So if you did not try it, you should try it. So my zipper is closing towards the left, so I make sure I will attach the bias tape to the side that will be connected to the slip pocket and baste it on my gusset piece. And I will do the start and the finish be overlapping like that. And if you need detailed instruction on how to cut the bias tape, on how to make this a little bit slower, you could also watch the YouTube video that I've added the link in the ebook as well. So now the bias is attached already to the gusset, so I will trim off any extra bias. See, this is how it's overlaying. And then I will connect the center markings on the top and on the bottom first. And to give this gusset a nice fit, I will make some slits in the parts of the gusset where it's above the curvy section of the front pocket. But doing this, you have to be careful. Some zippers don't like to be cut in two, so you should know your materials. Check if it's too fringy fraying. This zipper is really high quality, so it does not fray. And so I will start at the top and work myself down to the bottom, and then I will start at the front, at the top again and the other side, and then I will go down to the bottom as well. So we start here, make sure the edges align nicely, and work around the whole piece, starting at the top, going towards the bottom, and then adjust a little bit so that it's spread out nicely and fits nicely. We don't want any creases or bumps in our gusset, so we should take some time for this step. Make sure that it's spread out nicely. So you see there's a little bit missing here. It's a bit too tight, so I adjust it from this side a tiny bit, making sure that it's equal on both sides. And then I will baste this first and then sew with the correct seam allowance, and I will show you how. So first round is just basting, and if you don't like basting, I'm sorry, I have to break this down to you, but I baste mostly everything, making it a lot easier for me to hold my correct seam allowance in round number 2. So here you're sewing very close to the edge, and this is quite easy. So when you move your seam allowance to the correct seam allowance, nothing will like slide off. So baste first, okay? So the round 1 is finished, and now we're sewing with 7mm seam allowance, 1/4 of an inch, and this is my width of my sewing foot, my favorite sewing foot from this machine, so I will keep it. And you have to push down this corner right here, go slow, put the needle up, and then push down the fabric from the gusset at the spot you're making, just for a nice and smooth curve. If you don't do this, if you sew above any creases, you will have these creases be shown. You will have a bumpy gusset. So it's really important that the diameter of the gusset piece is exactly the same length as the outside edge of the piece you're attaching it to. Otherwise, if the gusset's too long, you're gonna have some creases and bumps. If it's too short, then it won't fit your piece. So this is important, and then you'll have to do it again, okay? So since we've attached our bias tape previous, we just need to pull this up like that and simply fold the raw edge to the center, and then fold over again and attach some clips. And since this tape was cut on the bias, it should lay nice and smoothly above the curvy section of the piece. So work around the whole piece, fold it over to hide all your stitches, your basting, the correct seam allowance, and then simply top stitch. This is where the start and the end is of the bias tape, so make sure you do hide any from the lower bias tape, and then top stitch. Okay, let's have a look at our front pocket. So I like to check all the seams if it's connected nicely, and I like to massage the zipper above the bias tape so that it will stay in place, but we will do this a couple of times. So I just like to have a look at it and check if the seams are nice and correct. So now we have to attach this to our front A. If you've chosen which panel should be the front, you take this template, place it on the main fabric A piece, and take a marker or some chalk. Make sure it's removable, but we will cover this with bias tape, so it's okay if it's not totally removable. And then draw the line and mark the center. So this is where we're gonna align the zipper from our front pocket. The front pocket has another edge from the zipper tape, and we've marked the center of the zipper tape attached to our front pocket already, and we will align it with the marking from the line that we've just drawn. So open up the zipper, place the front pocket zipper right sides together like that, and we will start stitching at the center towards the side, and then from the center towards the other side. There's no need to attach this now because we will just simply do this at our sewing space on our machine. So place this under the needle, center marks are aligned, and then baste your zipper onto the main fabric, right sides together. The straight stitching is quite easy, and then when you get to the curve, put up your foot and go stitch by stitch, go slow, don't pull anything, just have it be aligned to that line like naturally without a force. Let me fix that real quick. And now we will start from the center again, working our way to the other edge, which is a little bit harder because this front pocket is in our way. It likes to resist, but we won't give up. The back has to do what we want the back to do, okay? So align it to the line, go slow, take your time, and then baste it on there, step by step, stitch by stitch. Rotate the front pocket a little bit, but since it's attached to the other side already, it will pull up on the back, so that's totally normal and fine. Don't stitch into your fingers. Be careful about that, okay? And then just stitch, 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 and lock your stitch. So the front pocket is now basted on your front piece. So we take some leftover from our bias tape from binding the back. There you see it's aligned to the drawn line. And we will take the bias tape, and now we will just press it into like a 4-fold. Therefore, you mark the center line. You can simply just fold it over in half and press it, and then fold the raw edges towards the center and press it again. Fold it over again. So you have a four layers above each other, and give it a press so it will stay like that. See, this is how it looks like. And we will take this strip to cover up our raw zipper edge and the basting stitch. So therefore we will just move to the sewing space again, to our sewing machine, and just place it above and sew this in a slim rectangle on top of it. So here we are again, placing this underneath. We will start at the center again. You can either leave a long tail of thread and pull it to the back later, or you have to lock your stitches. But since we come back to this beginning stitch in the end, we can also lock the stitch in the end. So this is all covered up, and I sew from the center towards the side. Pay attention to the curve because that's the harder part. And when I reach the side edge, I just go down 1 stitch or 2 stitch depending on your stitch length, and then sew back all the way to the other edge to form a rectangle. So in this step, like, the open fold will be closed, and I really like the finish because it looks nice and neat. Some of my testers, they were wondering like, why even cover this up? They don't mind the raw edge from the zipper, and that's just totally up to you. This is your bag, your make, so you decide whether you like to cover this up or you don't. You like to keep it like that, that's up to you. But when you don't like to do the cover, then your stitching needs to be nice, you know, like my basting stitches, they don't usually look like really pretty. So this will be visible. So this is tricky, like going up again, because the zipper tape will resist. It wants to go in a different direction, but just press it down. You're the boss of the bag. So take your time for this, push it in the right position, and go back to where you started your stitching. And then if you did not lock at the beginning, you have to lock your stitch now. If you don't like to lock, pull the thread to the back and tie a knot. That's an option as well. So I really like this look, and I like the contrast strip. I kind of like it, but that's personal preference. Okay, now we will attach the whole front pocket to our front piece. Therefore, mark the center and also at the top, because now it's easier to do that later. You should have done that before, Sarah. You did not, but okay, let's do it now. And now it's important to pay attention of the zipper right here. Just align the raw edges. So take some clips and make sure the raw edges align, and then we will baste these raw edges together. Oopsie. If it's a bit tight, you could also make some small snips in the curvy section again, but it should be fine like that. On the other side as well, and snip off that extra binding. We don't need it, actually. You could snip the extra off before attaching it. I don't know why I've done this at the end of the process, because we don't need this overlapping bias tape. Watch out for the zipper pull. We don't want to sew over it. And when you have attached all your clips, you can baste the two pieces together and then set it aside, because then our front piece is done. Yay! So check again if you got everything right and snip off that extra bias tape now. And don't cut into the zipper, just snip off the bias tape. Have a look at what you've achieved. This is step 1, and this was not easy. So, applause. Worked out great. You can take a break or just go into the next step, which is the gusset. So, I will show you how to use the D-ring attachments. So, you fold the long raw edges towards the center and then top stitch. You do this with both pieces and thread a D-ring on there and fold them together on the back. This will be the back of our connector. So in the center you will have the raw edges. And now you will take some clips, set this aside. We will now make markings on our gusset piece. Therefore measure 6 centimeters, 2.5 inches from the short end. I use some masking tape for that, and I will also mark the center on my masking tape. Masking tape can be really handy because you can just draw on them and then in the end just take them off, so you don't have to use chalk or something. Okay, then align, this is the back, the raw edges are in the back. Align it to the center and stitch them on there, just in a small rectangle, right next to the seam where you've attached your piece. So stitch your D-ring connector on there, and then for more stability, to make your strap being connect like in a safe way, it's not a must, but it's an option, and it's a good option. I will add 2 rivets to each side connector. So therefore I'll just make a marking and punch 2 holes with a punch tool, or I don't know the English word, prong. I'm sorry, I don't know the English word. I make 2 holes in there for my rivets. And then I will attach 2 rivets on each D-ring connector. And now I will show you the rectangle that I've sewn a little bit closer, because I think that was too quick in the instruction. So I do not stitch above the same seam. I stitch right next to it. As you can see, it's just a rectangle. Go up as far as you can, because there's the D-ring. And yeah, make sure this is like aligned nicely. You could also use some double-sided tape to attach it first before you do your stitching, because it might slide off a little, and we want this to be straight, and we want the raw edge on the inside to be hidden. So now attach your rivets, and then mark the center on your gusset piece and set it aside. That was easy, right? Your gusset is then done and finished. If you don't have the tools to attach rivets, you could also sew an X box on the rectangle. So mark the center, and then you're done with the gusset. Let's make the back of our bag. Therefore, you could also use the marking on the template. In the video, this is 1 centimeter off, because this was one of our late changes to the pattern. So I've taken a ruler to make a marking centered on there, but on the final version the marking is correct, so don't worry about it. It's 3 centimeters from the bottom edge of the flap. And then install the male part of the magnetic snap, and again, to protect your fabrics, just fuse some Decophyllite above the back of the magnetic snap. And here it's attached to the lining of the flap, not the main fabric. We attach it to the lining. And then we take the flap main and lining pieces, right sides together, and sew the edges, the side and the bottom edges, with 1 centimeter seam allowance, 3/8 inch, and we leave an opening at the top corner. I do sew the first 2 or 3 centimeters from the top corner as well, because I think it's a lot easier when you turn your flap and fold the seam allowance inwards. It's easier to fold and to have a straight line. So turn it right side out. I've trimmed the edges, especially the curved edges, with pinking shears. Then I turn it right side out and form out the curves and the edges on the top, and then I give it a press and fold the seam allowance from the opening towards the inside. Then when everything looks nice and crisp, top stitch the sides, not the top. The side and the bottom you will top stitch, and not the top edge. Then make a marking 4 centimeters from the top edge. 1.5 inches from the top edge. I use masking tape again, and then I will place the flap on there just as shown here in the video with the seam allowance folded towards the center. Make sure it's centered. So therefore you could also make some markings on the masking tape to mark the center and how far it's going. So you have the same amount of measurement on each side. And you have to make sure that your flap sits straight. So also watch if you place this on your cutting mat, also watch the flap edge on the bottom of the edge if it's straight. See, now I check, it's not really 100% straight. And then we will stitch a small rectangle on there. And some testers ask me like, but how big is this slim rectangle? It's one stitch up. It's just one stitch up. You go down the line, one stitch up and go back, and then you have a rectangle. You could also use some rivets if you like for the look, but this will be covered up by our slip pocket. So when the flap is attached, we will now make the slip pocket. Therefore, we take slip pocket, back slip pocket, main and lining fabrics and place them right sides together and sew the top edge with 1 centimeter seam allowance 3/8 inch. Fold the fabrics wrong sides together and top stitch the top edge. When that is done, just place it right side up on the back piece of your bag. Align it with the side and bottom edges. So this slim rectangle is slightly covered up. It's not peeking out. And then baste the slip pocket onto your back piece. If not done already, mark the centers as well. And yeah, that's about it for the back. Time to move on to the next step. Now we will assemble the main body. So we have the front, the back, and the gusset piece. All centers should be marked. Open up the zipper from the front pocket because you will attach the gusset here at first. And first place the center markings on top, right sides together, and attach some clips on the bottom edge. Then push down the curves because this will be in the way. And then align the top first and use your clips to align the raw edges and make some small snips into the gusset piece where it's above the curvy section. Then repeat this on the other side as well and push down the gusset from the front pocket because it's bumpy, it's in the way, and we need to push this out of our way. Repeat this on the other side, and then I strongly recommend baste first and then sew with a 7mm seam allowance, which is 1/4 inch. But baste first, even though if you don't like it, it makes this a lot easier. See, I've done it too. And then check if the zipper has enough space that it can be closed and opened. If not, you would have to make a bit like of a fewer seam allowance to this edge. You would have to open up the seam again, but this looks quite nice. Everything's hidden within the seam allowance. And then we can connect our back piece to the gusset just in the same way. We start connecting the center markings on the bottom edge and then start from the top, working ourselves towards the bottom. We make snips into the gusset piece where it's above the curvy section, and I will baste this first and then sew with the correct seam allowance of 7mm, 1/4 inch seam allowance. When it's done, you can trim the curvy section of the seam allowance just a tiny bit, because we only used the small seam allowance. We did not use a 1 centimeter seam allowance, it's less. So we will take off just the bulk in the curvy section. And then we will take care of our interior piece. On this version, I will not do a drop-in lining. I will just show you the regular way later on how to connect this. And then at the end, I will show you how to do a drop-in lining. First, we take care of the interior. So we will make the slip pocket first. Therefore, take the 2 slip pocket pieces, sew them with 1 centimeter 3/8 inch seam allowance, but leave an opening at the bottom edge. Trim off the seam allowance at the corners, turn it right side out and give it a press. As you can see, I've pressed this and top stitched the top edge, and then I will place this on the interior piece A, 4 centimeters, 1.5 inches from the top edge, centered, and simply stitch it onto the A piece. And then I will mark the center. The opening from the turning the slip pocket will be closed automatically. Then we will take the second piece, because we will now make the interior zipper pocket. So therefore, we will cut the second A lining piece into 2 pieces. So therefore, cut 5 centimeters, 2 inches from the top edge. So we'll have a top and a bottom. And then we will mark the center from our top and bottom piece. On both pieces, we will mark the centers. And then we will need some zipper tape. So take a zipper tape that's 15 centimeters long, 6 inches long. Thread a zipper pull. So mine is bigger because it was the rest of zipper tape. So this is longer, as you can see. And I usually leave my zippers a tiny bit longer and then trim off the edges later on when it's attached. So take your zipper, mark the center, and place it right sides together on the bottom piece. Align the centers. The zipper closes towards the left, and baste this together. Now we will take the T-shaped piece for the bottom, which is slimmer on the side. We mark the center here as well, and place this right side down on top, and sew this edge with a 7mm 1/4 inch seam allowance. Then you fold the fabrics away from the zipper, give it a finger press, and then top stitch. So the fabrics are wrong sides together and it's top stitched. Now we will attach this. We place the top right side down, so they're right sides together on the zipper, and baste them together. Turn around. Grab the second piece for the zipper pocket. This is the wider T. And align it with the top edge, right sides together, and sew the top edge with 7mm 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now just fold up the top, just the top piece, and top stitch. So there you can see both of the lining pieces, the T-shaped pieces, are folded downwards. The top piece is folded upwards, and I am top stitching the top piece from the A lining. When this is done, we will close the side edges from our lining, from the zipper pocket lining. They should be like aligned perfectly, but I'm a messy sewer sometimes, so the sides don't really align 100%. Doesn't matter. Just make it work. And then sew this edge with 1 centimeter seam allowance, 3/8 inch, and leave the bottom open because we will make 2 openings in our lining fabrics if you do the traditional lining and not the drop-in lining. If you do choose to make the drop-in lining, you can close this, of course. You don't have to leave an opening here because we don't turn the back through an opening. But in this case, the usual way to do this is leave an opening here, and we will leave a big opening in the lining, but I will show you this later. You see, you sew up the side and then sew towards the side edge, so there will be no gaps. Then to close the zipper off, I baste above the end of the zipper, just so the zipper pull cannot like slide off while making this bag. Now I can trim off any extra zipper because I like my zipper longer, so I have like maybe a centimeter on each side standing over, like 3/8 inch. And then compare your two pieces if they have the same height. If there's like a slight difference, just trim it off whatever is bigger. In my case, it's just 1 or 2 millimeters. See, this is tiny, but it's better to trim this off. Then mark all the centers if they're not marked already, and we will attach our gusset lining piece onto the A piece with the zipper first, and this is done in the same way then we've attached it to our main fabrics. We will repeat this process. We will align the bottom center first. We will then align the top edge and work our way down towards the bottom center and make small snips, in the curvy section. Repeat on the other side. But now I won't baste. I'm honest, with this thin fabric, you don't really need basting. But you could, if you like, you can baste it first. Or you can just sew this with 7 millimeters, 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Make sure you don't sew through the zipper pocket lining. So this should not be attached, okay? Then repeat this with the second piece, but this time we will leave a big opening in the bottom seam. So we will simply sew until we're slightly above the curve. And the bigger the hole, the easier it will be to turn. But if it's too big, you might end up having troubles closing this opening later. So I show you how big my opening will be. I attach it in the same way. I make snips as well, but I will only sew the side edges and leave a really big opening in the bottom now, from here to here. And I will sew this with 7 millimeters as well, with 1/4 of an inch. See, if you see my pins are still in there, my clips, so I can just take them out of there, and then you see how big of an opening I've got here. We have two openings, one in the zipper pocket and one in the bottom of the lining. So then turn your lining piece right side out, because we will put this into our main piece for assembly. In this chapter, I will show you the traditional way for final assembly. If you like to do a drop-in lining, you should skip to the next chapter. So the main fabrics are wrong sides out and the lining piece is right side out. You place the lining into the main fabric and make sure the interior zipper pocket is aligned to the back of the fabric from the main, like where the flap is. So it should be on the back of our bag. Make sure the D-rings are folded down so they're not in the way. Align the centers of the top edge. Don't worry about the it's laying flat in the interior. We just need the top edge to be sitting correctly, and attach this with some clips. If you don't have a free arm, I know this is hard, especially the final top stitch, but if you go slow and if your materials are not too bulky, it should be fine. So again, I will baste this first, and since I don't have a free arm on my machine, you can see my struggle. So make sure you don't sew through any clips. And these are the times when I really wish I would have an industrial machine, and I know one day I will have one. I know one day I will have one. But right now I live in such a small space. I don't have space for a machine. Okay, never mind. Not your problem. Okay, we will base the top edge first, and then we will sew with the correct seam allowance. So on the short edges of the back where the gusset is, I take my time and I pause sometimes. And since this is just a basting stitch, you could also just take it off your machine and replace it. So if you've been sewing without a free arm, you know how hard this is. And this was some more basting that I did just to make sure that the sides of the gussets are connected perfectly as well. When the basting is done and all the clips are removed, it's a bit more easy to do the correct stitching now. So the seam allowance should be 1 centimeter, 3/8 inch for the top edge, and then stitch around the whole piece and worry about just the fabric right in front of your needle, not the rest. This is just where you have to pay attention because this is like in the way a lot, but you can do this. Be patient with yourself and your machine and don't curse too much, okay? Okay, then when it's done, lock your stitch. Don't forget to lock your stitch, and now it's time to turn. Like I said in the intro, this is a slim bag. The width of the bag is not as much and it's high. So this will make it hard to turn. If you have like vinyl fabrics that you've used or stiffer fabrics, this might take a while. So be patient, take your time, go slowly, step by step. I've made this quicker and I took my time, but I've only used the fall leather was very thin, so it's not that hard to turn. And what else can you do? You can place it on your heater in your apartment. If it's winter and you have the heater running, you can just place it on there, or you can take a blow dryer and blow dry it with some warm air to make the fabric a bit softer. If you have like outdoor fabric, like polyester type of fabric or fall leather, that will make it easier to turn. So when it's turned, you form out the top edge really nicely and make sure everything sits nice and correct, because once the top edge and the openings are closed, it's too late for any more changes. Okay, so check your zipper again, check if your flap is closing correctly, check the interior zipper if it's sitting nicely and if the top edge is formed out nice, and then top stitch the top edge. Again, this can be quite hard if you don't have a free arm, but if you go slow, stitch by stitch, you can do it. And yeah, but the free arm does come in very handy. So when the top edge is top stitched, we grab through the opening of our interior zipper pocket and pull up the lining and align the centers from the gusset and the side with the slip pocket, and then we will continue our stitching. So we will close the opening from there. Don't forget to lock your stitch at the beginning and at the end. See, this is where the seam starts, so I will start right here and sew the whole opening that it's closed, and it won't be visible anymore from the interior. And then you put it back and then fold the bottom edge towards the inside. You can give it a press to make it easier. I just take clips and then top stitch to close the second opening, and then your bag is done. And in the next chapter, I will show you how to do the drop-in lining method. if you don't want to turn it through the opening of your bag. But I mean, you have to turn the bag anyways. So if the bottom is open like the whole way, the opening is as big as the bag. So yeah, you need to decide for yourself what you would prefer. But I will quickly show you how a drop-in lining is done. So here you see my finished exterior piece, and I've turned the exterior right side out. And since my deco-fill is exactly 1 centimeter out of the seam allowance from the top edge, I don't need to draw a line or something. I just attach some double-sided tape on the wrong side of my fabric, very close to the edge. And since I've basted my seams first, I cannot open my seam allowance the way that I would like it to open. So I will do this in 4 pieces, on the front, on the back, and then on the sides, on both sides, really close to the edge, because I don't like stitching through the tape because it might gum up your needle. So think about it. If you use double-sided tape, that you don't want your needle to be gummed up, it needs to be special tape so you can sew through it without any problems. So then I will remove the other side from the double-sided tape and fold down the seam allowance right over the edge from the deco-fill. And if your tape is a good quality, and it should stay down like that, I've used some pins, some clips to keep it down. And I've had some issues because of my fingernails to get the tape removed, so I took a seam ripper, as you can see. That's better. And then fold down the top edge 1 centimeter, 3/8 inch. And since there was no tape where the seam allowance was, I've added some extra tape later on so that it will stay down. Now we will take our lining fabric, and the lining, the interior, needs to be wrong side out. And then I will draw a line 1 centimeter, 3/8 inch from the top edge on all the pieces, and basically do the same. If it's like a cotton fabric, you could just press it with an iron as well. I think next time I will do this. Just, it's better to have like a really sharp edge. And if it's cotton, you can press it. See, I've attached it to the top edge. And next time I will press it because it's cotton. And then repeat the same thing that we just did with the exterior. And then we can place some double-sided tape on the interior of our bag, because we will need double-sided tape to connect these two pieces, that they will stay in place. You could also use some clips to do that they will stay above each other in the correct way and not slide off. But double-sided tape as well comes in very handy, that nothing will like slide away, because we want the edges to be aligned nicely. There you can see I did not attach it to the top because I do not want to sew through the double-sided tape. If you have tape which is working out with sewing through, you can better do that because it's easier to align these edges. So first I check if it fits nice, if the fit is right, and then I will remove the side from the tape and glue these together. Again, fighting with my nails. I go step by step and then press them together. And again, because my top edge of the lining was not pressed, I didn't feel secure like that, so I've used clips to keep this in place. And then I worked around the whole piece and connect this with the double-sided tape and clips as well. So for me, the drop-in lining was not something that I've done a lot, so I say I still need to practice this method a lot more. So I might not be the best teacher of this method, but if you search YouTube for drop-in lining version, you'll find plenty of tutorials. So when this is done, you just top stitch the two pieces together, and now they're connected. You don't have to close any openings because you've left no openings. And ta-da! This is done too. Well, the strap is missing, of course, so we will make this in like a minute, right? This is quick. So we take our webbing, thread a slider on one end, and make like a double fold. We don't want to see any raw edges unless you're using like the strap ends. They look very nice too, and we will stitch them together with a rectangle. Now on the other edge of the webbing, we will thread one swivel clasp. Make sure it's not twisted, like in my case. Make sure it's positioned right, and then thread the end of the webbing through the slider again, above the webbing that's already in the slider, and then take the second swivel clasp, thread it on the end, fold over twice, secure with clips, and then I like to sew a boxed square, like an X box. Ta-da! But now we're done 100%. So you just need to connect your straps to your bag and applaud yourself for what you've done. This is like it's not like a really hard bag once you got the hang of it. So if you keep practicing, I promise you will get better and better each time you make those type of bags. I hope you like this tutorial. I hope you like the sewing pattern. And I hope we will make many more bags together, and I'm sure this one will be a bestseller if you sell bags because it's a really handy bag. I hope you like everything that we've done together, and I see you around next time.